So friends, let us begin with a word of prayer and invite you to bow your heads with me. Heavenly Father, I thank you for this moment. I thank you for this morning. I ask you for your Holy Spirit to be with us, to lead us and guide us as we gather around the questions of welcoming, the questions of being a welcoming congregation, and how, Father God, we might be able to do this in a missional way, creating a culture of welcome, not just among those who have welcome in their hearts and who have continued and carried on the legacy of welcome in our churches, but also, Father God, as a way for us to empower others who might want to receive the stranger. And so we thank you for this moment in Jesus' name. And the people of God say, Amen. Amen. Beautiful. So I want to begin by, well, first I just want to just double check. Kathy, can you hear me okay from there? Oh, excellent. Thank you. So I want to acknowledge the traditional custodians on the land in which we gather, and today is the penultimate day of NAIDOC week. So we acknowledge the Turrbal and Jagera peoples and their custodianship of these lands, and we recognize their elders past, present, and emerging. But most importantly, we continue to pray for God's work of reconciliation among all of his children. So, I wanted to share with you an outline of what we have here. The first part of it is basically a theological reflection on why we welcome. And you might be wondering, well, you know, come on, Esteban, we want to get on to the good stuff. Why are we talking about this? Because everything we do needs to have that underpinning of the biblical understanding of why we're doing it. And so I believe that will prepare us and that will help us understand and think about why we welcome, how we welcome, and of course the ultimate purpose for why we gather, and that is to worship God through Jesus Christ our Lord. You with me? Wonderful. So yes, I pray and hope that session will not be too boring for you, but if you're not off, I have given Anne permission to go around and poke people, okay? You are warned. The second session from 10 to 10:30 will be creating a space for welcome. Then at that time, I would like for us to take a 15-minute break, give us a chance to, you know, visit the facilities, have a conversation with those in our table groups, maybe unpack a little bit of what we've discussed, and give my voice a little bit of a break. I do need it tomorrow morning, so I don't want to overexert myself. Then at 11 o'clock after our break, Rachel will be joining us via Zoom, so she's going to be satellite calling in. And she's going to share with us a little bit of the COVID updates. Now, you might be wondering, why is that relevant for us? Well, one of the reasons is, first and foremostly, because of COVID, there is a lot of anxiety in the life of our churches, in the life of the church in general. And so, the more people who are aware, especially in the pastoral care space, the better we are equipped to be able to share with people that we still have a hope in Christ our Lord, and that so long as we play by the rules, as we are this morning, we will be able to gather and worship our Lord. And so that's why I thought it would be pertinent and important for Rachel to share some of that with us. You may have already noticed the changes that have come into effect as of yesterday. I just want to acknowledge John and Jenny. Thank you so much for Jenny, for setting that one up for us this morning. And so that is one of the things that Rachel is going to be talking with us about. And we're going to have, she'll be sharing with us for about 10 minutes, and then we're going to have quite a while to be able to ask her questions, because of course we realize that many people in the life of our congregation do have questions, and maybe they don't have a chance to ask them. And so please ask if you have questions. Not only will that inform yourselves, as Rachel is able to answer from the knowledge and awareness that she has, but it's also going to inform us as a ministry team as we consider the information that is pertinent to share with the wider congregation, and what are some of the questions that will help with that anxiety I was talking about earlier. And then we will talk about creating a welcoming culture, and in that session, that's where we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things we would like to see happening. I'm going to share with you these wonderful gift bags that my kids spent last night packing for us, but they're not complete. It's not a set thing. It's something that we want to see change, evolve, and grow with our community. But also, that's a rare opportunity for us to hear from you. What are some of the things you would like to see happening in that welcoming space? And how could that speak to where we are? And all things being well, hopefully we will finish at 12. But then we have the space until 12:30, so we are able to share some food, share some time of socializing together, if that is what you like, and continue that conversation going forwards. For folks online, we'll probably finish the session at that stage. So, how does that sound? Good? Does it sound too much? Not too overwhelming? I hope not. All right, wonderful. So, let's begin with a quick discussion, 5 minutes. How have we always done welcoming? I invite you to have that conversation in your groups, and I might have a little chat with Kathy over online. Let's go. So, what are some of the things that we discussed with regards to how we've always done welcoming?
How COVID has impacted it?
Yes, Kathy and I talked about that as well. Yeah. We talked about that uncomfortable, awkward moment. Yeah, you know the one. Someone comes to the door and they do this. And you don't know what to do. We put our hands up or we kind of shy away a little bit. And what does that say? In the past, before COVID, if we had done such a thing, it would have been a grievous problem, wouldn't it? Can you imagine that? I'm a welcomer at a church, someone comes along and puts their hand up, shakes my hand, and I go, oh, thank you.
Esteban told you all true, didn't expect it.
I believe Rob did that to me once. No, very good. And I hate to say it, but COVID permeates in this space. Because whatever issues we once had in the welcoming space have been amplified. All of these questions of first impressions, questions of how do we represent the welcoming nature of our church, the welcoming nature of our God, they've now kind of changed. Because half the time we're welcoming them like this, and the other half the time we have to maintain some degree of distance and connectivity. Later on, we actually have a funny video where they give us some suggestions about some COVID-safe greetings, which I think you guys will find quite fun. So, what else?
Well, we want to have to do the sanitation.
Yes, that's really great. Can you do me a favor? Please don't do that with Asian visitors to the churches. There is actually a thing right now about people chasing Asian people in particular with the hand sanitizer, and a lot of complaints of discrimination have come across. Not necessarily in church land, but definitely in the retail space. Yes, because of course the origins of COVID being connected with China.
I think that normal congregation people go past without doing it.
That's true too. Yes. Well, no, in that case, you have my blessing. But it's one of the newer people who might not comprehend this, may not understand it. And I find that very interesting. So we just got one for the op shop, an automated one with a battery. And I thought to myself, I walked in yesterday it was, and I went straight for it without even thinking. Why? Because of the fact that you see the same thing everywhere, Coles, what have you, everywhere. And so it's been programmed in us. We see the white pylon and we go, we must do this. We must submit ourselves to the white pylon before we enter into the space of retail. And so I did it without even thinking. So maybe there's something to that as well. We've been programmed now. We've got to do the hand sanitizing. So thank you for that one. What about for the back? Anything you guys want to share?
When we were saying in the past, we used to have little like notice sheets.
Yes.
And we go, we'd shake their hand and give them that. So it's none of that anymore. And
little packages, the little basket, the little bag,
Ellen?
the little bag that was in
A little welcoming
welcoming bag.
Yes, what do you say?
Yes.
You mean something like this?
Yes.
Of which I have.
Yes. And it also had minty, I think, as well, as the other.
Moments like these, you need
Minties.
And isn't that so true in this mask-wearing world? Am I right? Thank you all so much for that wonderful discussion. And I gather, and I assume my team will agree, that's been a lot of what we've talked about as well. And your reflections have been our reflections as well. So that tells me that we are on the right page. And I don't know about you, but my theological reflection of that is that God is in the midst of us. Because in the 5 of us and in wider conversations that I've had, both at synod and presbytery level, very, very similar things come up. And we can laugh and we can giggle and we can share these awkward experiences. But underneath there is an element of tragedy, really. And that element of tragedy is the fact that there are people who are going to come and who are going to experience these things and they won't laugh it off. They will look at it and they will experience it as something very serious and very grave. And it will be a tarnish on our reputation and on who we are. And that's not reflective of who we actually are. And so I'm really grateful that we've had this time of reflection because I think it positions us really well for the rest of our conversation. So, and I will warn you, once again, I've given Anne permission to poke if you fall asleep. The sermon of the day. Come on. It's the technology that's fallen asleep today. There we go. So, reflection. In Leviticus 19, verses 33 to 34, it says, when a stranger sojourns with you in your land, you shall not do him wrong. You shall treat the stranger who sojourns with you as a neighbor among you, and you shall love him as yourself. For you were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. This verse was fundamental for understanding what early Israel was supposed to be about. Because we see in Scripture almost 2 Israels, don't we? We see the people of God who go to the promised land, and anybody that's in their way, they just steamroll right over, don't we? But we then see them building cities of sanctuary, opening up harbors, safe harbors for strangers among them. We see this, and we are trying to find where is God speaking in this space. Now, I hear in these words the God who wants to embrace and enfold all people, and who wants to use his people, the people of God, as the vehicle for that. In the Old Testament, that was Israel, and this is a command that was given then. But today it is us, the Christians. And so this command then translates itself to us in Jesus' own words, which is where he says that the second greatest commandment is love your neighbor as yourself. And so we have this very clear understanding. Now, obviously, I am preaching to the converted here, am I not? You are already welcome. You are already pastoral caregivers. You are already thinking about the other. So I want to unpack this to empower that which we already do. I'm not going to teach you how to suck eggs. Instead, I'm going to tell you how to put a little bit of mustard on there. See what it tastes like. Sound good? Skip that one. Strangers are sojourners. What does that mean? So in the original language, the word that's used there is gur. And this word is a very interesting word. It actually means to abide, to dwell in, to dwell with, to remain, to inhabit, while being disconnected, while being a stranger. And that's a really interesting one. I want you to think about hospitality in your home. And when you receive someone in your home and you want to receive them warmly, what do you say to them? We say, mi casa es su casa. Have you heard that one before? Yes? Yes? My house is your house. Exactly right. It's not really their house, is it? They're not paying rent, they're not paying for the lights. But it's a way of saying that they are dwelling in, they are sojourning in that space. What we see is this is a very interesting word. In Genesis 12:10, Abraham gurs in Egypt to flee from famine. 2 Kings 8, Elisha gurs with the woman whose son he brought back to life. And in the start of the book of Ruth, We hear that her adopted family, Gur, sojourned in the land of Moab. So they still had this, there was a sense of disconnect, but welcome. I am not supposed to be here necessarily, but I am welcome here. I can come here. There isn't a sense of intrusion, but there is a sense that I don't belong, that I am being made to belong, to welcome. And I hope that that encourages you in your welcome, that there is a biblical precedent for that which we do. Because when we are opening the doors to people out there, and when we're saying to them, please come in and take this seat. Have you ever thought about the semantic meaning of that? Take this seat. So, oh, that's true. Where am I going to? I'm going to take it for myself. When we do that, we are expressing just this. And I think it's so important that we are aware that there is that biblical precedent, that there is that connection there. The second part of the verse today says, you shall do them no wrong. Now, I think this is the one that's most challenging for a lot of churches. Because we might say, how do we do wrong in welcoming people? Now, I want to say to you that, yes, unfortunately, sometimes in our welcoming of others, we might do wrong. If we are culturally insensitive, or perhaps if the person is going through something and we don't welcome them with a pastoral heart or pastoral appropriateness, we may do something that may cause them to feel that hurt. And a good example, of course, is now in these COVID times, throwing your arms up in the air when they're going to shake your hand. It's not technically wrong, is it? Because we are abiding by the rules, but they might perceive it that way and they might see it that way. Sometimes we can do them wrong in being exclusive or excluding them. We see sometimes situations where people will go and visit our churches, and other than being led to a seat and being part there, there's no other interaction that happens with them. They feel excluded. There was a moment of welcome, that moment had passed. Sometimes the things that we can do or say can be divisive or confrontational. I don't need to elaborate this point, but once again, with COVID, whether or not we wear masks, whether or not we shake hands, perhaps you don't shake the hand of the stranger that comes forward, but then you see your best friend and they give you a big hug. That can be very confrontational. We can discourage people, you know. Sometimes we can discourage people. And that's something that we need to be aware of. How we do that, we're going to unpack a little bit as well. We can be insensitive. Once again, looking at that COVID example, if I'm going to hug my friends, why am I not going to hug the stranger who comes in? Equally, if I'm not going to hug the stranger, maybe I should rethink hugging my friends. And we can be unsafe or culturally insensitive. I want to take a moment to unpack that because, of course, that is a key area for me. I wonder how many of you know how old I am?
21.
Can we give Jonathan a round? God bless you, John.
21 plus.
21. Seriously, no, seriously. 49. 49. May I ask how? May I ask what do you base it on? I'm not offended, but may I ask what do you base that on? No problem. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Very good. I'm actually 38. Yes. And so, now what's interesting is, and I try to maintain my beard because I am very young looking, but it seems inappropriate, let's say, that I have so many children at such ages. So Lara, you're absolutely right. So that's why I maintain a beard. Because unfortunately, I have been mistaken for one of the children.
Isn't that a compliment?
Not in my culture.
The baby face.
Sorry?
The baby face.
Baby face. Oh. And that's what I want to get at. You know, sometimes we might look at a family or a group of people or even an individual and we might come up with all manner of assumptions about them with very valid reasons. So I'm definitely not offended. I think, yeah, you're totally right. But sometimes those are not helpful. And I love it when I can encourage a group such as yourself. When you see someone in that situation, you don't quite know what's going on. I want to encourage you to have a conversation with them. and to let them self-identify, to allow them to share with you, hey, where are you situated? You know, in life, in family, and so on and so forth. And often that moment of welcome is not enough for that. So, what do we do? This part is quite self-explanatory, isn't it? But how does it reflect our welcoming space? I don't know about you, but it causes me to ask myself the question, how do I want to be welcomed? When I go to visit another church, how do I want to be welcomed? When I'm invited to a friend's house, how do I want to be welcomed? When I meet someone new for the first time, how do I want to be welcomed? So, include or be inclusive. Yes, you may only have a moment. Sometimes that's enough. But sometimes you need more. And you can't abandon your post because there may be other people there. Maybe it's that really odd Sunday once a year where you have 10 visitors. I don't know. But you can find someone, a pastoral caregiver, someone with a welcoming heart, and say, hey, look, this person has just arrived. Can you sit with them? Can you show them that I've given them a welcome pack? Go through it with them. Answer their questions. Give them that opportunity to feel included, embraced into the family of God. Hospitality, receiving others. Yes, that is just so crucial. I love the way how this morning, and I don't know if you were aware, but I was observing you. I consider myself a student of Australian culture. Because although I came here at a young age, I'm still learning. I'm learning your idiomatic phrases, your nuances, and I'm making many mistakes, don't get me wrong.
We are too.
Thank you. But I love the way Aussies welcome. I love the way how it's just assumed. You walk into a space, you are received, you are greeted warmly, and you are assumed to walk in. Not all cultures do that. Not all cultures expect that. Some cultures expect that you would go a little bit beyond to make that effort. And other cultures expect to be a bit more standoffish. I want to share with you a very quick story. When I was in missionary training college, we were encouraged to attend a number of churches from different cultures. My wife and I decided to visit an Indonesian Presbyterian church in the heart of Melbourne. When we arrived, we were welcomed by being handed a piece of paper like this. We were then told, please come in and sit quietly. That's very confrontational, is it not? And for a Latino, especially so. But when we walked in, we realized the church, this is nearly half an hour before the service, was full. And everybody was sitting how?
Wow.
Exactly. So they were welcoming us into their community by making sure that we were not going to go in there and then do something awkward or out of place. That we would be able to walk in and fit right in. And all those things they did, which to us very much seemed like gestures of exclusion, actually became expressions of inclusion. It's great for us to look at Uronga, Tarragindi, Holland Park, Mount Gravatt, see what the people are doing. And when we encounter someone new or someone from one of the other communities, encourage them to engage in what is happening. In that way, we can be hospitable and receive others into our space. We can encourage them. Now, massive disclaimer. I am one of those nasty ministers that would ask the congregation to move forwards if the front pews were empty. I haven't done that to you yet. But we can encourage our new people. Hey, come along and sit. There's lots of space up front. And don't worry, the minister doesn't bite much. That kind of thing can really encourage people. Rather than walking in and going, oh, where do I sit? Where is the allocated seating? You know, I can tell you where Roundabout people are going to sit. I've only been there for 2 years. I can tell you, and I'm sure you can tell me where folks from each of your communities are going to sit. Where is the allocated seating? The new person is asking themselves this question. So if you come along and you encourage them, come and sit over here, or sit with Hilda. Sit.
That's a flow over from the days when people bought their church pew.
Yes.
People could sit, that was their family seat, no one else could do that.
That's right. That's exactly right. And I love that because we can turn that idea around, can't we? And we can say, yes, this is your family seat. What an awesome opportunity to welcome someone into your family. Thank you for that. Yes, absolutely. We can be sensitive. I think I've discussed that a little bit already. And we can be culturally sensitive. We can look, we can observe, we can see. As some of you are aware, before coming to Southside, I was the minister of a Tongan Samoan congregation. And although I didn't do it every week, I did find myself often wearing a skirt to church. Because wearing the lava, as it is called, or the tupenu in Tongan language, is the equivalent of wearing a collared shirt for us. And so to not wear that garment can be taken as disrespectfully, especially for people who have only recently come over from the island. But it also made me accessible. It meant that people would come and want to talk and have that conversation. How can we exercise this? Once again, we can encourage people to self-identify. But we can do things so that we can communicate that sense of welcome and inclusion. Now, I'm not suggesting that we take out the big anthropological encyclopedia and learn what's appropriate in every single culture, just in case one of them were to welcome in. But let's ask ourselves about what are some of the culturally appropriate ways of welcoming that we appreciate, and how can we express that in a way that is culturally centered. Perhaps starting off with a hug is not that appropriate, but demonstrating welcome with your eyes, with a smile, that's almost universal. And all those little things that just makes a big difference. So with that said, I'm going to now pause for about 5 minutes and give you a chance to have a chat through those things. We discuss some of the things that the scripture causes us to reflect on that maybe we shouldn't do. Some of the things that the scripture causes us to reflect on that we should do. And I want to encourage you to just digest a little bit of that now. Let's take 5 minutes to do that. Let's come back, friends. So Kathy and I were discussing some more of the cultural things that we can do. Of course, with the awareness that we actually live in one of the most culturally diverse areas of Brisbane, between Uronga and Caringbah, Coorparoo, down to Sunnybank. On average, about 53% are either born overseas or have a parent that was born overseas. And as you may be aware, while that is the fabric of our local area, that is not necessarily representative in where we live. Would you like to hazard a guess at the most spoken language besides English in the Tarragona area?
Is it
Chinese.
Japanese? Only because
It is.
Paul told me what the kids are at
So the school there has got an intentional immersive Japanese program. And many Japanese households from across Brisbane have relocated to that area in order to send their kids to school. So we actually have a cohort of Japanese households, somewhere in the vicinity of 1,000 in the Tarragona area, Tarragona stretching down towards Salisbury. And who's doing Japanese ministry here? That's right. We don't know anyone. I did have a friend who did do some missionary work with the Japanese here in the Tarragona area, but that was many years ago. He's gone back to Japan now, obviously. But I want to encourage you, you know, some of these things are relevant for us to be thinking about because there is every likelihood that at the church in Tarragona, through programs such as Jaffa and other local ministry outreach efforts, we will have Japanese families who will come in. Christianity in Japan, although it is not illegal, it is largely suppressed and it is not popular. And so many Japanese Christians, devout Christians, love coming to places like Australia and the United States because they have that freedom of religion. My stepfather Dan will tell you the number of Japanese weddings that he held at Ann Street while he was minister in residence there. Because there is something within that culture and community where the oppression of Christianity has led to this. Anyway, I digress. As you can imagine, this is a topic that is dear to my heart, and if you want to find out more, I'd love to talk to you about it. I'd like to hear from you, of course. So, what are some of your reflections on the conversation?
Looking at body language is very important.
Yes, definitely.
And as even though I've been here 20 years now, I still feel myself as a newcomer in many ways, but going into many churches here and overseas, the most welcoming thing was that lovely smile and saying welcome, and really meaning it, and
Yes.
you felt needed and wanted.
So if you were to come to Mount Rebecca morning and I was standing there like this,
I'll probably leave.
welcome. Take this paper from me. Yes, Harry.
I raised the issue that on the age spectrum, there's two levels of acute discrimination against the age. The children and young people can be extremely discriminated against because they're considered too young and not able to do it. Then you get grey-haired and older spectrum, then that same thing is retranslated into your age factors. It's called ageism, where then you interpret because you look like you're old, you might act like you're old, but you can't do it because you're old. And that's a discrimination. It's so subtle and happens so often in the life of the church.
Absolutely.
You feel useless and then not wanted.
Yes.
My husband is like that.
Pardon?
My husband is like that.
Yes.
And how do we feel now with the state government saying, if you're over 70, please stay home?
Yeah.
You're 69 because you're not.
Until your 70th birthday, and then that's it. It's over. It's over. Richard said something in our ministry team one day that really stuck with me. He said, for generations, we've been declaring these words, it's now time for the children to leave.
Yes.
In any other context, friends, if you had said that, would that be okay? No way. No way. But the children remember that. They feel it, they understand it. And in a way, I believe they internalize it. So is it any wonder that so many children, or people who were once children, have now taken their leave from our communities? Something to think about. All right. Now, like I said before, the thing for this module is we were once strangers. Why do we do this? And this is so relevant for us to learn. We see in 1 John, where is it? Oh, I have a passage here. Excuse me, Kathy, I'm just going to have to minimize you. There we go. This is how God showed his love among us. He sent his one and only Son into the world that we might live through him. This is love. Not that we loved God, but that he loved us. And he sent his Son as an atoning sacrifice for our sins. Dear friends, since God so loved us, we also ought to love one another. No one has ever seen God, but if we love one another, God lives in us, and his love is made complete in us. John is talking to a separated, disparate community. They're separated by linguistic bonds, by social norms. They're separated by the fact that some of them are Jews and some of them are Gentiles, and they cannot literally sit together as we are now because of the law of Moses. So his challenge is a big one for them. It's much bigger for them than it is for us. But I think we need to welcome that challenge. And not just in our welcoming in congregations, but in our everyday. Because I know most of you, and I know that you are part of other programs beyond just the Sunday morning worship. And that which we are talking about today is applicable in all of those ones. See, I'd love to see men from Mount Gravatt and Tarragindi coming to the men's shed and feeling that connection. I'd love to see them feeling that as they come, for the ladies' fellowship or even conversational classes up on the park. I'd love to see that this is something that we can embrace and really create a cultural welcome. And it's something that we've done, that we've always done. But I think the biggest impediment that we have in achieving this today is the fact that we cannot differentiate between a stranger and a Southside member who just happens to come from another community. And I think if we do both well, we will be so much happier. So I just want to encourage you with that, because that love cannot come from us and from who we are. It has to come as a reflection of Christ at work in us. Yes.
Would you bear with me when I offer a very strong super criticism about something?
Please.
I think the system of our congregation here, the administrative system, is not welcoming to strangers. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, as I told you on the phone call, I had trouble accessing. So I went to the website. So you pick up the website and you ring the office. The office says, if you need a minister, go to the website and you'll find a minister. Now, to me, that phone call at the office should say, these are the phone numbers of 3 ministers who are available, and if you ring one of those, they will be available to you. You see, right at the beginning of the process for the stranger, they cannot get access to the people that they want to. This is super criticism, me for it. Then when I ring your number, what do I get? I get a message that tells me, if this is an emergency, ring 000. What's that relevant to a person who wants to ring a minister? I think sorry for my criticism, but we've got to be careful that we're not having an expectation from the people in the congregation about being welcoming, when right at the beginning of a process, it is very exclusive and inhibits connection with people. Sorry about that.
No, please do not apologize at all. It's very relevant, and it's important for us to hear that, because we have processes and system in place, but they're not perfect. We're not Jesus. And what we want to do is we want to find ways that we can manage everything. So I added the 000 message around about COVID, because I received a couple of calls from non-church people who were expecting emergency relief, and we just did not have the capacity to do that. So I wanted to remind people that this is something that, if they're in an emergency relief situation, there are numbers that they can call. But you're absolutely right.
Why get them to ring 000 when they wanted the parcel of groceries?
Because at the time, that was one of the number one ways that they would be able to get support.
But 000 doesn't want to hear about that, because they want to hear whether it's police, ambulance, or fire.
Yeah. But at the time, there was when COVID first struck, that was one of the options. Yeah, emergency relief.
Anyway, that's
Yeah.
fine, sorry.
No, that's fine. That's absolutely understandable. I just wanted you to know, I'm not trying to fob people off with that response. I'm aware of the fact that people are looking for help, and sometimes we don't have that help. But it's really important for us to hear from all of you. So please don't be shy. Please let us hear that. And I really thank you genuinely from the bottom of my heart, because it's important that we hear that and learn that and understand that. So what's the time? 10:23. So I've gone a little bit over time. Are you okay? How are you feeling? Are you okay for me to burn on? And then we'll look at having morning tea nice and early. How does that sound? All right, excellent. So I have about 15 minutes. So creating space for welcome. So we have this passage from 2 Peter. Therefore, my brothers and sisters, make every effort to confirm your calling and election, for if you do these things, you will never stumble, and you will receive a rich welcome into the eternal kingdom of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. So reflecting on that, I want you to take a couple of minutes. What does a space for welcome mean for you? How do you want to be welcomed? Okay, let's take a couple of minutes for that. So friends, how do we want to be welcomed?
Welcome by people who have the time to spend with us.
Yes.
And we were just having this conversation about the people who are on the door saying, welcome, come in, are far too busy with the Netflix to have time to sit with us and have a conversation. And so for us, it seems, we might need to get into that well of people in our seats who don't have all those millions of other jobs, but might actually respond to an offer of being in this ministry of just sitting with a new person and having a conversation. A lot of our folk feel as if the older folk, they've got to the end of their lives, their productive lives, they've got nothing that they can do now. But they might actually respond to an offer to be part of this, to actually sit with a new person and have a conversation with a new person, to free up the people who are running around doing 3 million jobs at the door. Yeah, so creating a space is finding people who have time just to sit and chat with no other jobs to have to do.
I like that suggestion. And what if I were to say to you that there's a group right now sitting in our churches that is waiting for that?
Yeah, and there is. We just identified that.
That's right. That's right. So it's about. So for me personally, it's about those pastoral caregivers in particular. Because what will happen, and I've seen this at Mount Gravatt, quite often I will take a new person to go and sit with either Beth Bold, Gandhi, or Elsa, depending on the visitor. And what I find is that when I do that, that person is going to get followed up by the person I connected them with.
Esteban, we used to have that in Lievano.
Is that right?
We did. We used to have a new person who came, someone was appointed to look after them and then invite them to morning tea and come and eat report here and that person would stay with them.
Lovely. Yeah.
We do that, but that's all sort of gone, you know, because the COVID has disappeared.
That's right. And Jenny, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I think we know this stuff. I'm not telling you anything you guys don't already know. You know. But it's just in the midst of life, in the midst of everything and where we come from, it's somehow slipped by the wayside for various reasons, very good reasons, might I add. Yes.
And we were saying, now they come to the COVID champion.
Yep.
And so they sort of almost bypass the greeter. They feel they've been greeted.
Exactly.
So, past the greeter.
Yeah.
They haven't been welcomed by the COVID champion.
No, not at all.
So flustered getting these people, new people, lines that you don't even hardly say welcome.
That's right.
And then they go into the door.
Yes.
But they don't really see the need to speak to the welcomer because they've already spoken to the COVID champion.
Now, so I probably shouldn't do this because we are running short on time, but I do want to share with you a brief story. So I'm going to ask your permission. Can I share with you about 5-minute story? Last time I did this training, I did it on behalf of the Presbytery of South Australia, which stretches from Woonondatta all the way down to Mount Gambier, right? And I did it at a number of different churches. I was really blessed. I was invited to go, not because I'm the world's greatest pastoral care minister. I was invited to go because I was brown, and there weren't very many other non-white ministers who were willing to. Yes, that's right. But they paid for my accommodations, that was nice. Anyway, and I got to sell out South Australia, which I love. And meet wonderful people who are trying to welcome and love people and care for them. And in one congregation, when we walked in, it was me and it was another minister, and we were encountered with this gigantic brick pylon in the middle of the foyer. And as we arrived, we saw this big brick pylon and we're like, what do we do now? I mean, I believe there's a church here somewhere, but I don't see it. I have no idea where it is. So we decided to walk around the pylon, and sure enough, on the other side of the pylon was the Greek town. And as part of the training, I said to them, do you not see a fundamental problem with this? You are literally saying only people in the community who know that the church is behind this pylon. And I am not kidding. This thing was 2.5 meters wide. It was enormous. If that was holding up the roof, what's in the roof? Why is in the roof that's this massive thing there? Anyway, I digress. And I said to them, crazy idea. I don't know, but listen, what about the Greek word stand on the other side? And sometimes, friends, that's all we need to do. Sometimes we cannot, what's the expression? We cannot.
Fancy the forest with the trees.
That's the one. That's the one. So, if you're a welcomer, and you see that people are going straight to the COVID champion, here's a crazy idea. Stand in front of them. Catch the new people beforehand. And the people who just need a welcome, thank you for coming today, just give them that and let them pass on through.
And excuse me, just across the table, Jen, we only recently discussed that in our pastoral carers committee. And you know that handing out of the newsletter is no longer needed. So we've got the welcomer, just as we've involved the welcomer in helping the COVID champion clean at the end, at the beginning, perhaps those two merge now and cover both those little body language, little things the new person says that the welcomer can pick up while the COVID champion is recording, and hand out also a card, in our case it's longer, to take them where they sit. So we might try to build on that, if you think that's good, too, now that we've got that and based on what we're sort of talking about now.
Wonderful. So thank you, John, and thank you for letting me share that story with you, because I think it is pertinent. We don't have those blocks in any of our churches. We don't have 2.5 meter wide pylons made of ice cold brick. But maybe we do, and they're just not ones that we can see.
Well, you just reminded me, COVID says entrance exit.
Yes.
For example, you know, entrance exit, COVID says now. So our front, and yours our front, is our exit. Here is our exit. And so that's really what we're identifying there. So we've got to be more conscious of that as we are with what of the two doors. We're encouraging to that. Just to use your own as an example, I'm sure each of our 4 places have our own equivalent, perhaps, of that pylon.
That's right. That's right. Very good. Very good. And Margaret, we have 2 doors almost side by side, and we sometimes forget which is which. Which, you know, it's once again, it kind of demonstrates the craziness around COVID. Not that it's wrong to do it, but just how we can get so confused. All right, friends, I hope you can see these 2 images. Okay, let's take a moment. Can you, as a group together, we won't break up. Can you tell me? Let's look at the first image here on the left. What do you see about that? How do you describe that space?
Busy.
Yeah, busy, crowded, cluttered, confronting.
I'm sorry, are there people there?
There is one gentleman over here. He's very interested in the customers. He's looking his phone to try and make sure how he can help the customer.
Showing what it offers.
Yeah, so it's got everything on display.
It has its own character.
It does that, yes. That tells me this is for people who know. This is for the people of that neighborhood.
Yes.
Yes, you know, and yeah, this is an image from a bodega in New York. So it just gives you an idea Okay, and if you go to a bodega in New York, you will immediately feel, unless you are from the neighborhood, you will feel excluded. You will feel you don't belong there. They'll look at you weird. They'll make fun of your accent. I speak from personal experience. That's the way it is. Whereas here we have an IKEA. What's the difference?
Well, you can't get out of IKEA.
It's space,
You can't get out of it.
Spacious. It's open.
It's open, it's sort of sterile looking.
It is, yeah. Yeah.
It's not warm.
No.
But they usually have very clear directions of where you're supposed to go.
That's true. That's true.
That's true.
Yes, and this is a bit of an older image, but nowadays there probably would be quite a lot of COVID
Yes.
stuff there. And the COVID stuff, it's confrontational, yes, I will fully acknowledge that. But for a number of members in our community, it's also safe. It speaks of security. Folks here are aware and they are complying and they are engaging in the system. So, yes. So I asked a couple of teenagers, my daughter and her friends, which of those two did they feel that they could actually go to? They wanted to go to this one for the candy, but then they wanted to buy the candy and sit there to eat it.
Yeah, that's right. The first one on the left is more interesting.
Mhm.
To go into. The other one was a nice place to sit.
That's right. So where do you want to spend time? Where do you want to be? And I think, I mean, obviously these are very extreme examples, and I don't imagine our churches look like this. But it's good for us to be aware. This is what society at large, this is where they interact with others, largely. And talking with David Fender, he challenged me on this because he was saying, well, what about, when you go to a foreign country, what do you see there? What are the things that make you feel welcome or unwelcome? And it made me reflect on my recent experience going to the States the last time. Because as a Latino, I am automatically profiled over there. Because I held an Australian passport and I had it with me in the line, I was actually singled out by the immigration authorities. This was a very strange thing for them. I did not conform to their idea of what an Australian coming into LAX would look like. And so I was separated from my family. I was told to go over into a special little office where I sat by myself for 20 solid minutes before someone came. They took my passport, by the way. They actually took my passport. And they must have been doing some research looking into my background, something like that. So that is very relevant. That is something we need to be aware of. Sometimes our attitude when we go to receive people can be one of, oh, I know just what to do with you. Hang on, grab. And put you in that space. And we want to avoid that too, because we want to be welcoming. We want to create a space where people will want to come and have a sit. Maybe they might not sit up there on the chairs that are up on the wall. Who knows? Maybe they will. But they will want to come and be in that space and be welcomed. So how do we create a space for welcome? Firstly, open doors. Open doors communicate so much. And we are struggling with that with COVID because we can only open certain doors. Sometimes they're not the right doors. For example, in Acrobat, one of the reasons why we keep mixing up the doors is because we keep asking ourselves the question, do we want the door that's open to be the one that faces the street or the one that faces the driveway? Solution, we put the COVID check-in at a table outside. Poor Kathy was freezing in her socks last week. But that's what we did. That was the compromise, the sacrifice that we made in order to communicate that welcome. Tidy, uncluttered spaces. They communicate so much. Just ask my boys. They have communicated with me very clearly. The mind trap of Lego by the front entrance. The stacks of clothes ready to fall on you, being stacked on top of bookshelves and whatnot. They've communicated, I am not welcome there. And the way how I overcome that is I tell them to tidy up their rooms, if not, no video games. A warm greeting, not that, well. And this is, I think, a really big one, and it came up a lot in our pastoral care conversations. Follow up, follow through.
Yes.
How was your experience today? What did you think of this? Now, friends, I want to encourage you with something here as well. It's really hard as a preacher for me to tell you to do this. Because in some respects, I'm telling you that as part of your welcoming, you need to somehow endorse the message that comes from the pulpit. Okay? Can I make it very clear right now? I'm not asking you to do that. If you feel that as part of your welcoming, you need to have solidarity with the person to say, you know what? I don't know what Esteban was doing this morning. Maybe he didn't have enough coffee, but that message was certainly not on par. That is fine with me. I can't speak for my colleagues, but for me that is fine. And that doesn't communicate disloyalty. It communicates a sense of we have had this shared experience. And we can have a giggle, and we can have a laugh, and we can encourage them to come back because, hey, it does get better. Because for some of those people, that one bad sermon or that one bad experience with that one bad song may be the only impression they get. But by having that relationship, by having that solidarity, by having that connection, you have an opportunity to unpack more of what this community is all about, which is more than just that one song, that one sermon, that one experience. Are you with me?
Yeah.
Wonderful. So yes, you have my permission. All right, biblically based welcome. I'm just conscious of the time right now. So what does that mean? So we have this passage here, accept one another from 1 Peter, I believe. 2 Peter verses 1, no. From Romans, of course, how could I forget? Romans 15, verses 7 to 9. Accept one another then, just as Christ accepted you, in order to bring praise to God. For I tell you that Christ has become a servant of the Jews on behalf of God's truth, so that the promises made to the patriarchs might be confirmed, and moreover, that the Gentiles might glorify God for his mercy. So in this, my reflection is we can think about ourselves as being the Jews. On the inside, we have the knowledge, we have the awareness, but we are trying to extend that out to the Gentiles. And there's been so much written about what Paul was trying to do in that service, which is beyond proselytization. It's beyond just making disciples of the Gentiles. It is about communicating a universal Christ, one that is here to save the people of Eurongotari and Lievano and Mount River, and that is so much a part of who we need to be. All right, friends. I'm going to conclude there. Let me give you a chance to stretch your legs, visit the bathroom, have something to eat. And if you can come back at 10:02, that would be astounding. Thank you so much. So thank you so much, Rachel, for joining us today. We really appreciate it. You go on ahead and take it away. So Rachel will speak to us for a little while, and then after that, there'll be time for some questions. Thank you, Rachel.
All right, great. Thanks for having me, everyone. I can see everyone in the background there, and it's good. It's amazing we can do these things multimodal, isn't it, with Zoom and in person. So, and I can see Kathy online here as well. Hi, Kathy. All right. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about COVID, but I'm not really going to talk about COVID because I think we all know what COVID is and all the different requirements that are around us. But just wanted to speak a bit about how COVID impacts when we are welcoming people into church services or other activities that we might hold at the church. But so I'm just going to talk, I'm not going to talk for too long. I'm just going to do a bit of a brief overview, and then I'm just going to open it up for questions because I thought that might be the best way for me to be able to answer your questions that you might have. And if I don't know the answers, I can find out for you. So as we all know, COVID, there's 4 main areas with regards to COVID that the Queensland government are asking people to comply with, and that is contact tracing, the physical distancing aspects, so maintaining 1.5 metres distance, the hygiene, so particularly hand hygiene, so hand sanitizer, washing your hands regularly, and then also the cleaning aspect. So they have been if you want to call them the rules of COVID, they are the 4 key things that we will see in different ways around our church life, but also out in the community. So as far as how do those things impact when we welcome people. Firstly, I'll go to cleaning because it doesn't. So I'll just name that one there. It happens after the activity. You know, you'll have a couple of people that will hang around and do the cleaning. So I'm not even going to go there with that. And we all know what we need to do with regards to the cleaning. So we'll just leave that one. The physical distancing and hand hygiene. So with this part, an interesting change that's happened about 2 weeks ago, I think it happened. The Queensland government actually changed all the restrictions and rewrote a lot of the information that's out there. So right back at the very beginning of COVID, when we first came out of lockdown, so we went into lockdown in March last year, and then we came out that first time, it was very much on the onus of the organisation, the church, to make sure that people were physically distancing and that they were using hand sanitizer or washing their hands. So it was very much up to the church to sort of make sure people were doing that. And I think our people did an amazing job at doing that. We moved furniture, we made sure there's hand sanitizer, we made sure there's people on the door, offering it to people, so on and so forth. 2 weeks ago, that flipped. And now the onus is on the individual, which is great for us because it means that we don't have to enforce that as much as what we have been in the past. Basically, it is up to each individual to do their own physical distancing, and it is up to the individual to use good hand hygiene, whatever that works for them. So we don't have to have someone there with the bottle of hand sanitizer anymore saying, squirting people's hands, because it's up to the individual, and at the end of the day it's up to them. Something to bear in mind with the hand sanitizer aspect of it too is that some people actually react to some of the ingredients in hand sanitizer depending on what's in them. So some of them, most like hand sanitizer is essentially alcohol, but some companies put things like moisturizers and fragrances and things like that in them to make them smell a bit better and to be not quite so harsh on our skin. But unfortunately, some people do react. And I'm one of those people. I actually, different brands just react with my hands. So I'm very cautious. So it's something just to keep in the back of your mind. So when you think of that from a welcoming perspective, it actually doesn't impact us too much now because the onus is on the person. As long as we've got it there, and that's all we really need to do now. Now, contact tracing. This is the big thing, and this is the big change. Yesterday came in that all churches now have to use the Check in Queensland app. That is mandatory, and this is where it's changed. That the contact tracing, it's always been up to the organisation, up to the church, but this is even more so now because the way they've rewritten the requirements is that the church has to make all reasonable efforts to collect contact information about guests using the Check in Queensland app or manually adding them into the business profile mode. So I know Jenny, she was on duty this morning to do it there. So hopefully it all went smoothly for you, Jenny. But if you were a part of checking people in with the business mode, that takes a bit of time. So that's a bit of a challenge that we've got at the moment. And with that regard, in respect of welcoming, I see that as the biggest challenge that we've got because you're trying to do process. So you're trying to check people in, you're trying to comply with the government requirements, making sure you've got their details correct, but you also are trying to do that relationally. So like trying to be relational, welcoming people, having a smile, how's your day, welcome, great to have you here at worship while you're trying to do process. It's tough. I'll just say that it is really tough. I'm more of a process person, and so my head goes to, I just need to get your details in here. For others who are more relational, you will stop first, ask how they are, and then go, oh, hang on, I need to check them in. So depending on how we are naturally wired, that I think for everyone that is a challenge to mix those two. I don't have a great answer on how to do that. What I've found helps me is I will always make sure most of the time, look someone in the eye when they come to the door. Hi, how are you? If I know their name, I'll use their name. If I don't know their name, like, oh, what's your name? Great, I'll just check you in, check them in, and then they will go into the service. I've had other instances where the welcomer will actually welcome the person first, and then the COVID champion will check them in. That works as well. I think depending on who you've got welcoming and who's doing the check-in part, because we try and have 2 people doing that, particularly with our worship services, you can probably find a way that works for everyone there. But that's the biggest challenge that we've got. So let me just look at my notes. I'm actually going to stop there, and I'm just going to open it up for questions if people have questions. It's free for all, anything in regards to COVID, welcoming, church services, activities, whatever. So if anyone's got questions, fire them at me and I'll have a go at answering them.
Rachel, are we still cleaning the church after?
Are we still cleaning the church after?
Yes, that is still a requirement that the church needs to be cleaned after each activity. The reason for that being is that we don't know if anyone is going to be walking into that space after the church is closed. I mean, we know that we have church, say at Holland Park. Was that Hilda that asked that question?
Yes.
No? Yes, it was. Okay, I thought I recognised the boys. I can't really see people very well, but so at Holland Park, for instance, we know we have worship there every Sunday morning, but we don't know who might pop into that space throughout the week. Now, I was there 3 times this week doing different things and in that worship space. And so with regards to the virus, it does remain on surfaces. 3 days seems to be the kind of rule of thumb for most surfaces. So it is really important that we do need to clean afterwards. And that is written into the restrictions. So yes, unfortunately. Yep.
Thank you.
Yes, Laura?
Rachel, it's Laurel. You mentioned there are 2 ways of checking in. One is the individual has the government website and does that, the check-in themselves. And the other is, you said, the business model profile. Does that mean the UCare thing that we've done all along? Is that what you mean? Different thing.
Yeah. So all our COVID champions, I emailed them about a week ago and told them how to use the Checking Queensland app. So in the app, and anyone can actually access this. So Jenny knows how to use it now. Have a little chat to her afterwards and she'll show you. But you can actually just check yourself in as an individual, and that's just, you put the QR code up and you check yourself in. If you're there with a friend or someone, you can add them as well. The business profile, you go into through the settings and go into a different mode, and that's where you manually add in people's name and phone numbers and so on and so forth. So if anyone wants to know how to do that, I'm happy to share that. It's not sort of secret business or anything. You don't actually get to access any information in the app, because the way the app's designed is from a privacy perspective, only Queensland Government can access the names in there. So we cannot see who checks in using our app. And then after 56 days, it's automatically deleted, which is part of the requirements with contact tracing. The UCare, we are actually still going to be checking people in through UCare, which is the way that we've been doing it right from the beginning. And the reason for that is that because we can't access people's details in the Checking Queensland app, we still want to know who's attending our services and our activities from a pastoral care perspective, so that we can say, okay, this person who's usually there every week, they haven't been for 3 or 4 weeks, maybe we should just make sure they're okay, whatever that process is. So we're going to be doing, I've called it a double check-in. So where you're checking in with Checking Queensland and you're also doing the UCare check-in. So.
Rachel, to point with Carol, I instigate more than over JP services at Holland Park Courthouse. And what the JP department has done is that they have the app, but then they have a mandatory form, a manual form. So if the person doesn't want to use the app or can't use the app, then there's this manual form that they fill in the details of that. And then at the end of each shift, the coordinator has then got to submit that information to the department and then destroy the manual form. Isn't that process part of the church as well? So you've got the app plus a form that people fill out.
So with the new, this is the new requirements as of yesterday, okay? All contact information needs to go into the Check-in Queensland app. If the app is, you know, getting maintenance on Sunday morning and we can't access the app, we do need to have another way of recording people's details. But as soon as we can, we need to enter those details into the app. So it's all about getting the people's details into that app as quickly as we can. They have sort of said within 24 hours, but I have heard that the sooner the better is kind of the thinking, because the way they do contact tracing is if we have a case in one of our centres, they will know, oh, that person was at that worship service, for instance, at Yeronga worship service at 10 o'clock. They will download any information, any person that was on site at that 10 o'clock, and it's all about the time that people arrived. That's what they look at. So they don't look at how long they were there. They don't care when we left. It's all about when they arrived. So getting that information into the app is crucial. So yes, we can have the paper form, but that is a backup that then needs to go into the app. So does that, hopefully that answers that, Harold?
Yeah, that's right, because, you know, with the youth care program for your church, you can't stand there asking the person all the details that required on the manual form. Like, they've got to put their name, they've got to put their contact number, and then their email address. There may be a couple of other little things as well. Now, if the youth care program surely can't have people standing at the door, almost putting people under an inquisition before they come to church, because we're talking about being welcoming, and that would be the first thing to diswelcome people. But if you've got a manual form, they can't do the app, get them to fill in this manual form, they then subscribe the information, and then you can deal with it later.
Yeah, and that's what I've told our COVID champions. I said, look, if you get a backlog of people needing to be manually added, then we actually have printed forms of our regular worshippers available for them. Oh.
Hello, Rachel. I might just give her a text. Kathy, are you still with us? Okay, yeah, so just making sure it wasn't on our own. So yeah, definitely on Rachel's end. Thank you, Kathy. Are you enjoying it, Kathy? There, do you want to say hi to the room? I don't think they've had a chance to say hi to you. Does everybody know Kathy? Yes. I don't think Kathy necessarily identifies with one particular community, do you? You're all of Southside. You're all of ours. That's right. Very good. Okay, so Rachel's logging back in. Okay. Yes. I don't know about you guys. We're doing it at yeah. I believe that it was going to be on, but yes, I don't want to speak for my brother. Yes, it must.
Oh, I'm back. Sorry about that, people. Love technology, hey? All right.
Thank you, Rachel.
That's all right. Sorry about that. I'm not sure what really happened. My computer just decided to shut down. So anyway, it's all good. I've got power. Everything should be good now. So Harold, did I answer your questions? I'm not sure at what point I dropped out.
So just to recap, so yes, we absolutely, it is absolutely mandatory that we use the app. However, we can also have a sheet as well. So COVID champions know that if there is a backlog of folks who need to be put in, they can just fill out the sheet. And our regulars in particular are already there, so they can basically just, I believe it's a tick or a mark against that rota, and then.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we've got actually printed sheets of our regular worshippers available for the COVID champions. So if there is a rush of people that need to be manually checked in, they can just tick them and then just add them in later. So we do have a few different processes available for them. Right.
Yes, so the app.
Excellent. Any other?
Sorry, Jenny's just saying the app is the most important.
Yes, definitely. That is what is mandatory is the app. So I said to Jenny the other day, we caught up, and I just said, look, if you've got to let something go, like let UK go, just get people into that app. That's really important. UK is still important for us as a pastorally caring church, for us to know who's coming regularly. But at the end of the day, we need to comply with government requirements. So, yeah.
The need to comply is very serious. For the subscribers can be quite expensive, hundreds of that, $13,000 or something.
Yes.
So we're fairly serious about our compliance.
Yes. So yeah, Harold was just commenting. It's very serious about our compliance. So, yeah. Any other questions, friends?
Rachel, worth knowing that tip about 2 of the 3 requirements. Not this won't apply to everyone, but when you're putting in that details where you have to do that, it's either phone number and email address, or phone number and street address, rather than doing the whole 3.
Yeah, that's right. The requirements for the government is 2 forms of contact methods. So in the app, it defaults to phone number and email, but if people don't have an email, you can use a street address. You don't need all 3. 2 is enough. And it does actually, when you put the phone number and the email in, it'll have street address, and it'll actually pop up then with optional. So you don't need to fill that field in. Yeah. Thanks, John.
I do want to just encourage everyone, if you do have a camera phone, my data is preset and that of my family. So wherever I go, I can put in there myself, and then where it says, you want to register another person, I can put my family members in there. Yes, so I just want to encourage, I know this little black box is very frightening. There are many days in which I am scared of it too. But, you know, this is just one thing that we can do, just make life a little bit easier. And it will be a requirement, not just in church, but pretty much everywhere we go, which there's a whole other conversation about that as well, and how that Christmas doing happens. Any other questions? Rachel, I want to thank you so much for sharing with us. I thought you had frozen again for a second there. Please don't.
No. I'm listening, trying to listen to people.
Way from side to side. No, but thank you so much. We are conscious of taking up your Saturday, so we want to thank you and then let you get back to it. Okay, let us give a thank you.
Thank you. It's been lovely having me, lovely being invited to come along to speak. I'm happy to talk to anyone about COVID stuff. It's sort of what I'm living and breathing at the moment. So just if you have any questions afterwards, you know how to get a hold of me. Happy to have a chat. All right. Enjoy the rest of your morning. Thank you.
complete. So how was that?
Good.
It was very interesting, wasn't it? So just to recap, tomorrow in particular, masks will be required. And probably next Sunday as well. We can stand, we can sing, we can move around. We can have lunch. When we sit down to have something to eat, we don't have to take our mask. We don't have to keep our masks on. We can take them off. And yeah, the biggest change is of course the mandatory reporting with the app, backup, bit of paper, and it's all going to be a learning curve, but we're in this together. So if you have any questions, once again, and I know Rachel said this, but I will stress it again, don't be shy. Come and talk to us. We want to help and make that happen as it is can. One thing I wanted to say in that space, of course, you might be finding that some of these regulations are conflicting, and you know it's very confusing. I went to I had a meeting in the city the other day. I went with a friend. When he arrived at my house, he didn't have to wear a mask. When we got in the car, he had to wear a mask. When we went to the meeting, they served us coffee, so he didn't have to wear a mask. It's hard to keep track of, believe me. And this was in a government building. This meeting was in a government building, so it's crazy. It's crazy. I just want to encourage you all with the words of our Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Duff. She said, when COVID first came down, we had no idea what we were dealing with. We did not know how it was transmitted. We did not fully comprehend how long it stayed on things like surfaces or what was some of the transmission components of it. There was conversations of seeing creating a cloud of bacteria and germs and the way in which that impacted things and transmitted the virus and things like that. And what she said was, we know a lot more now. We know a lot more about how the space restrictions and how the mask wearing and how all these things can impact. Rachel affirmed this. Wearing gloves, for example, has raised incidences of COVID because people neglect to use hand sanitizer and the virus sticks to rubber gloves, rubberized gloves. So wearing gloves is not as good as having your bare hands, because when you have your bare hands, well, you tend to wash them more frequently. And so it's interesting that just the way these things are all working and coming together. But you know, we beg your patience as we all work together in these new norms that we have. How's everyone feeling? Do you want to have a break? Do you want to have a bit of a debrief? Are you happy to burn on? Yes? All right, excellent. I'm conscious of, you know, we're downloading a lot of information today. The video will be up on YouTube. So if you enjoyed today so much you want to experience it again, you can go onto our YouTube channel and relive the highlights of this morning. But also if you feel completely overwhelmed, if you walk out that door later on and you think to yourself, oh my goodness, there was so much, my head is absolutely swimming, please, please, please. Our expectation is not that you're going to come away from here knowing the absolute ins and outs of welcoming and our expectations, just that we've raised your awareness a little bit, but above all else that you know that there are people that you can come and talk to, so you'll be able to talk to myself, Rachel when it comes to COVID matters, and of course our pastoral team. Now, do you know who our pastoral team is? Is? Help me. Is. Very good. Do you know who that is? So from Holland Park, we have Bob hand up. So any questions regarding kind of our more high-level stuff there at Holland Park? Bob and McDonald from Sarah Kennedy. Everybody knows that. You can put your hand up if you like. And John and Jen from Lievano, and they know everything that's going on. And at Macrobat, it's me or I've got COVID on the brain, or Gangi or Beth Bolts. Beth is currently traveling, very sadly impeded by COVID everywhere she goes. They were on the border with Western Australia when it closed. They were on the border with New South Wales when the breakups began happening. They were nearly stuck in Melbourne. So thankfully their accommodation is their van, so they don't have to go far. But yes, they're experiencing a lot of our national crisis right now firsthand. But yes, so Beth and Gungi, and they are our pastoral caregivers for Mount Gravatt. So that's where we're at. All right. Creating a welcoming culture. So a time for reflection, 2 questions. What are some of the good things we have done in welcoming? And what are some of the things we could have done better? And let's take 5 minutes. So we'll go to 25 past. Is that okay? Excellent. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So, I don't want to stop you. If I can be 100% honest, this right here is the lovely filling of the crusty bread. This is the good stuff that we really want to talk about. And 5 minutes sadly really is not long enough. But I hope this is a taster to get you thinking, so that we can actually keep these conversations going in various spaces. I think that's going to be really, really important. But I do want to hear from you now, and what you have talked about in your groups. And I'll share also with you what Kathy said from her experiences at Living Faith in Karuna. So who would like to share?
One good thing we've done is to smile.
Yes. And have you noticed, when you wear a mask, I don't know about you, but I have suddenly become so much more conscious of my eyes.
Yeah.
I actually feel.
Well, eyebrows get a good workout. You've got to use it.
Very good.
Eyes and soul.
Mm,
When you paint a portrait, there's the soul.
that's right. The window to the soul.
Window to the soul, that's it.
That's it. Yes.
And,
So what else? What else do we do well? Or what else can we do better?
We talked about, going forward now, we'll actually need 2 folk on checking in. One to make sure folk do the app, and if they can't, that checking in person will need to facilitate that. But there needs to be a second person to do the UCare check-in, because one person's not going to be able to do both of those things adequately. So going forward,
Yeah, that is definitely an ongoing procedural conversation about how that works. For the next few weeks, we're going to prioritize the Queensland Government app for all the reasons that Harold mentioned, which are very, very valid, and also to communicate our compliance. But yeah, because we value the UCare app as a pastoral care tool, every Monday, Tuesday, I go on there and I look at who's come to worship, who's not coming, who needs a phone call, things like that. So it's such a great tool for me in the work that I've been doing in the Mount Gravatt community, to be able to have that awareness. And it's also meant that I can then follow up with certain information to key people at Mount Gravatt, and I can say to them, hey, I'm concerned about this, I see this going on, and I have hard data that I can show people, who's coming, when, at what time, are they coming regularly, are they not coming regularly, and with the wider awareness within the life of our church, it also helps me to respond in that way. So definitely a huge value for UCare. UCare allows us to do that, to be able to do that pastoral care follow-up. But the Queensland app is what we'll prioritise for the moment. But yeah, thank you for that.
Is that happening in every church, the follow-up? Because a lot of people are being lost.
I can't speak for the other groups. I can only speak for what I do personally in Mount Gravatt. I'm really blessed with Beth and Gungi. I know that whenever I have any questions, I can reach out to them, and they will do the follow-up themselves, or they will inform me so that I can do the follow-up. So But that's a uniqueness to the Mount Gravatt community. It is something that we can incorporate, and certainly it's been part of our conversation as we've been talking about pastoral care networks and how that could be rolled out in such a way that would be beneficial for us congregations wide.
We talked a little bit about the communication card,
Yep.
which would now be in the foyer of all of our sites.
Yes.
Not everybody at this table knew about that.
Right.
I'd just be interested to know if others know about it.
Is that something you would like me to unpack?
Yes. It's useful for new folk and for
So-
welcome.
So I might take this moment to segue into our baggies. So first and foremostly, this is not going to do the heavy lifting for us in welcoming. Can I just say that? Handing this to someone. So remember before, so this welcome? Don't do that. But welcome, so lovely to have you here. Thank you, it's so good to see you. Yes, look, I want to give you this. This has blah, 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 blah. Now that list of what's in there will probably change. It will probably change just because of the fact that we are a growing, diverse congregation. Excuse me. So in this sample, which my kids packed probably quite badly yesterday, but that's all right, their kids, we can forgive them. We have information brochure, and that's just got a little bit about where we've come from and a little bit about where we're going. But in particular, ministry team with photos. We don't always wear our badges, so it's good for people to, new people in particular, to know who they are. I'm just trying to, we can't really pass things around, can we, because of COVID? No, right, okay. You just might have to trust me then.
So we have a brochure. We have a brochure.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes,
right.
so that brochure there. The What's On booklet. Now, at the moment, those don't have What's On booklets inside. So the idea, because the What's On booklet changes every 3 months. So it'll be important that the welcomer knows that someone is coming to the church and that we have a small pile of What's On booklets there, ready to put inside the baggie when they arrive. A Girls Brigade pamphlet. Now, Girls Brigade were the only ones to get back to me on time when we print these off. I do have Boys Brigade ones as well, and I'll make sure that those go in particular in the town of the ones, which I think will be very, very relevant. I've reached out to our other groups. They haven't actually responded with that. So if you're part of a group and you'd like to see your flyer, maybe you don't have one. I know I'm speaking with 3Fs. This was the opportunity for them to go and actually have a conversation. Let's make a 3F flyer that we can actually share with everyone else. So I'm, as with my other half of outreach minister, I'm really, really happy that that spurred that conversation. And so I'm looking forward to having those coming into our baggies. And friends, there are only 10 for each one of our centres, because the idea would be that, you know, they're there, and because there are only 10, when I do get these, I can print them off here at the office, get my kids to fold them, or fold them myself, and then I can just go and drop the 10 off for each relevant centre, and just make sure that we have that. And that'll be something that, you know, hopefully some of our volunteers will be able to pick up and do in the long run, so it doesn't fall down to me. But for the moment, I just want you to know I'll take care of all of that.
And they're only given out to new people.
Yes, yes, very important. I don't know why this isn't in my sample, but a Southside postcard. Now, the goal of this postcard is on the back. It has the QR code for our website. So people can access our website quickly using their devices.
So different card for full ones?
No, just for our website, for our.
Oh, sorry, the Southside website.
That's right, yeah. Service times are all there, address, and contact details. So the idea behind this is a new person can put that on their fridge, and that way they've got that information very on hand. Talking with new people, I found that that's been one of the biggest impediments in coming and joining our church. I don't know where the service is, you know, or they confuse it from the 10 o'clock service to the 8:30 service. So hopefully by having all of that information on the back there, and the only pertinent information on the front being the logo and our mission statement, they will have that information on the fridge, and that will encourage them to come to services. I also say down here, combined services every 2 months. And so that helps them understand, oh, okay, the last time I heard about a combined service was about 2 months ago. Maybe I need to go and have a look at the newsletter online and see if maybe this particular week that I want to visit, there is a combined service, and then just change how I manage that. All right. Any questions about those?
Communication card?
Coming?
Oh.
Just before we go on to the communication cards, I just wanted to just, so we're okay with those?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay.
Very good.
Communication cards, obviously, they look like that. They're in the foyer of every one of our congregations, every one of our churches, sorry. They are not just for new people. They are an opportunity for us to share prayer points, pastoral care points. At the moment, they come to the office, and then through the office, they're distributed to the appropriate people. So I believe that right now they're really only being utilized at Tarangi, and so they're being distributed through the Tarangi pastoral care work. Then I think Jock has done a couple from Lievano as well. So yeah, so it asks the community that they're attending. Details there, so it definitely has on the information for new people, and then it asks where they are in their journey as new people. On the back, the date, please pray for, and then that's where you can put in your prayer points. And please do feel free to fill this out for someone else. If you hear that in your pastoral care capacity that someone would like prayer for something happening in their lives, please fill it out in there, and then that way that gets to the praying people at each of the communities. And then down here you can also register when you'll be away. That's part of the reason why this comes to Rachel often first, because it's an opportunity for Rachel to record where people are going to be away with respect to rostering and other things. But then, of course, messages and suggestions, which the ministry team would really value to receive. So that's it in a nutshell. Any questions?
You put that in the box already. Do you have a box or what do you do with it?
Oh, when
Yeah.
in the offering plate.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, right. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
There is a communications box in each of our centres, and they can potentially go in there if you think that it needs to be communicated directly to the ministry office. But quite often they'll go into the offering plate. That has been the custom.
Right.
Since that card can be used by everyone in the congregation for communicating prayer needs and other information, we need to sell that. We need to tell our people about that, because not everybody knows about it.
Yeah.
Not everybody knows they even exist, or that they're allowed to be used by people, by current members, for communicating prayer needs and other information.
And because most of them are displayed that way, it looks like they're only for new people.
Yeah.
So I totally understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I have been flipping them in certain places.
I didn't even know they existed.
Oh, there you go. Yes. So at Acrobat, you'll find there are two bundles, one that is facing that way and one that is facing that way, for that reason.
I wonder if it's worth even just once a month distributing them to everybody who's in the service. They can take it home with them and use it when they want to, or it's just a reminder.
We discussed distributing them for the same reason that I can't give you the samples to rifle through right now. We could get in trouble for that. Having said that, the regulations are changing every day, so who knows? Additionally, letting everybody know is a simple task. So this week we're moving to local notices. So I can certainly encourage Jock to share that locally at here at Tarangi.
We used to put it in the offering plate, and it would go to the prayer team then, but that hasn't happened since
Oh, is that right? I wasn't aware of that.
So it goes into communication in the box.
It does go in the box now.
Because I've got to see it through to a local prayer team.
Yeah.
Which we haven't had since 1st of January 2020. So
The few that I've received at Mount Grant have come to me, and then I take a snapshot and I text them to Gandhi, and they go to our prayer team in Mount Grant. So I think part of that is the community minister part of it, how we as community ministers are treating things. And so what that sounds to me is that there just needs to be that communication centrally about how that needs to be taken care of. And technically they'll come to me over the next couple of weeks because I'm taking care of Caragindi while the F is away, so. So I'll make sure, and you might get a couple of text pics from me then.
we don't have a local prayer team.
Oh.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh.
Because it went,
I thought there was okay, well, let's take that conversation offline, and I'd love to unpack that with you a little bit more. Yeah.
If we finish with that, I just want to also go back to the third one, that we went from there to the welcome bags.
Yep.
And especially including a little bit of what, like Anne said, I see a lot of wisdom in, or benefit in the pastoral care team at each of the 4 congregations meeting a little bit more frequently, so that issues like that can come up and be discussed, or between us we can say, hey, how are you going? How's it been going? And sometimes pastoral carers become aware of other people not in their team.
Yes.
Or if you just keep on going like that, COVID's knocked that a bit too. And I know, in the case of Jock, he's done his best to get us meeting, but we're not meeting with any frequency.
Right.
I'm just wondering whether that could, I would suggest that's one thing.
Yeah. Well, I've asked John and DF that because I'm pastoral care minister, taking that over from David McGregor,
Yes.
that I can come along to those meetings. So I can begin to learn who's doing the Zoom. And then from that, begin to pull together a greater network. That's the goal. So, but I really appreciate you saying that, John, because that is part of what we need to hear. We need to hear that this is a value within the congregations. Because what we see largely, and this is got to do with the way how we are currently structured, so it's not anybody's fault necessarily, it's just a symptom of our current structure. What we see as ministry team really is what's happening from, let's say, 8 a.m. to 9:30 in our earlier services, 10 a.m. to 11:30 at our later services. That is it, pretty much. And so what that means is that we then have to do intentional follow-up afterwards, but then we have our ministry areas as well. And so because we have our ministry areas, technically the way how it works at the moment is we have 2 days of ministry. One of those days obviously is the Sunday that we are in the congregation, and then 2 days of ministry area, and then our 1 day for ministry administrative duties that we need to do, continuing education and whatnot. So that's kind of the way how it works, and I bet you can hear within that there's not a lot of time, and so that's where we kind of need to be hearing from you so that we are able to look at our structure and be able to say, oh, okay, well, maybe we need to make a bit more time for X, Y, and Z. Maybe we need to communicate better about communication cards, etc., things like that. And I personally, I can't speak for the rest of the team, but personally, I really welcome that. Because, yes, I am here because I have a call in my life, and Harold, I know you really appreciate this, but my job is to serve Christ, serve you. And that is, you can take that from me, that is my personal conviction. So that's what I want to do, and that's why I would love to hear from you. So please, do not be shy. I'm not going to snap you back, don't worry. All right, any other questions on the baggies before I continue? John, do you have a question?
No, that was it. Yeah, you reminded me, like, what turns over in the pastoral care team is even a pastoral carer.
Yes.
Turn over, and then we give people we should be adding to the team.
Yes.
And people who fall away and things like that. So
Absolutely.
It's good housekeeping.
Yes, indeed, it's certainly basic. And that's also why a congregation-wide pastoral care network would be important and relevant. Because perhaps, so for example, we have 22 pastoral caregivers at Mount Gravatt. We don't need that many. And so to be able to empower some of our Mount Gravatt pastoral caregivers to do some of their pastoral care, because they have pastoral heart and they want to love others. And so for them to be able to do that at home, part and longer, for example, and have just take a little bit of that pressure off, I think would be nice as well. So we're thinking, and this is really what I want to say there in that space. Very good. Can I encourage, when you do give the bangy, that you sterilize your hands beforehand and you give that to them. Please don't drop it or here you go. We want to be respectful, culturally safe, all of that fun stuff. Kathy, how are you coping with everything? Okay? Very good. Now, I've been promising you this video, so get comfortable. Have a bit of a laugh.
Hey Foundations, my name is Scott, and we are so excited to be gathering again at both our Loveland and our Windsor locations in person. And one of the things that's always been a regular part of our weekend service is this time where we greet each other. One of the awkward challenges of COVID-19 has been figuring out, how do we do this right now? It's awkward. I ask myself, do I high five somebody? Do I shake their hand? No, I can't shake them. Do I hug? Hugging's definitely out of the question. And so we decided to be helpful, to give a few practical tips, some greetings that we can use to stay socially distant and safe. So I invited my buddy Walker to come in and teach you all how we can greet each other in this time while remaining physically distant and staying safe. Let's do this thing.
The Foundations Church Social Distance Greetings. The Bro Head Nod. The Toe Tap. The Karate Kid Toe Tap. The Howdy Neighbor. The Forrest Gump Howdy Neighbor. The Chicken Wing. The Modified Chicken Wing. The Tebow. The Pew Pew. The Worm. The Sharpshooter. Just ask your kids. And for those wanting to greet in the parking lots, the Honk. The Midwestern. The Adele Karaoke. Finally, for those greeting with our online campus, the Celebrity. The Linguist. And the Yeller.
In all seriousness, we could not be more excited to be gathering together again. We cannot wait to see you all again soon, and until we do, we just hope that these greeting guidelines have been immensely helpful for you. Till next time, we'll see ya. Hey Foundations.
So, who liked that? Did you learn something?
Laughter is a good medicine.
I visited the church website. It turns out that they had some complaints. They had to put a disclaimer to say it was just water. Look, friends, for me, the big learning from that video is that we are not alone. Churches all over the country, all over the world, are experiencing what we're experiencing, and not just to do with COVID, but also to do with things like diminishing numbers of children and young people, dealing with the digital age in church, where we have a largely aging population, all of these things. That meeting, which I attended in the city, it actually had to do with the census that's coming up, and it talked about how different community groups, including ethnic, culturally, linguistically diverse, and churches can engage with the census, because everything's going digital as part of that census, and it's going to be very difficult for a number of cohorts in life of our community. So I want to encourage you in that. We are not alone. We're all struggling, and that means that we're also all here and we can help one another. You with me? Great, wonderful. Okay, I want to conclude with this very controversial section here. I'm a welcomer. I've been part of this church for 25 years. I have known and I have loved these people, but yet my job now is to ignore my friends and only talk to new people. How do you feel? How do you feel about that? Okay. Yeah?
We mustn't forget the people who are here or who seem lost as well.
So what I want to encourage you with two things. The first one is that, no, we don't neglect our friends. But it means that we need to be intentional as well. And I think that's the big thing when it comes to welcoming, is we need to be intentional. In a lot of our churches, and I use the UK data to have a look and get an understanding of the population walking through our churches. I saw that largely we get one visitor about every 3 months. And that's in general across the whole of the Southside churches. So when I say these things, I'm not saying that every week we ignore our friends. But what I'm saying is that we be intentional. So the first piece of advice there is let's actually talk with our friends and tell them, I'm unwelcome at the moment. Let's make time to catch up. Not necessarily at the door. Don't be rude to them. Good Lord. Please do not, nobody go back to your churches and say, Esteban told me I have to fob off my friends. Ignore them when they come and I'm welcoming.
That's what I said.
Yes, don't say that. But let's involve our friends in the ministry of welcome, is part of what I'm saying. As some of you know, as a minister, I have a very unique role in the life of the church. And I will often invite friends, guests to come to the church. I have to tell them when I invite them. I will be there from 8 o'clock. You will see me running around like a chick with its head lopped off, setting up musical instruments, PowerPoints, what have you. Please don't think I'm being rude. That's my duty. That's what I have to do. I'll catch up with you for a coffee afterwards. Most people understand that. And I think that it includes them in the journey that we have in ministry aspects. Number 2 is complementary to that. Make time beyond the welcoming space. And I think that's one of the hard things for us where we are today. Because a lot of, and my notes go into this quite extensively, but I'll just, because of time, I'll talk off the top of my head. Quite often in the world today, we only see our Christian friends when we are at church. And so I think it's good for us to try and make that happen. And I am challenged by this. I don't make enough time for my friends beyond the Sunday morning gathering, and I want to encourage you all to do that as well. Because if we all did that a little bit more, I think we'd see that this community become more cohesive, and I think it'll be a real blessing. Okay, this one you can say, as everyone said, right? Don't overcommit. Yes, we have a volunteer shortage. I want to acknowledge that. Yes, we could use you every single week on welcoming and on pastoral care, but we don't have to. Okay? Please know your limitations. If you know that you want to have a precious Sunday where you can spend that time with your friends, let us know. Let's make that time. Let's make that happen. I believe that it'll generate in the welcomers, in the pastoral caregivers, a greater appreciation for those moments when you are exercising ministry. And for us, we'll create in ministry team an awareness of how we can best serve you and the wider congregation in this space. So I really want to encourage you on that one. And yes, you can quote me, please do. Don't commit. Enjoy. This is your spiritual home as well. We're not here to be servitude all the time. And this is complementary. Ministry can be fatiguing. Okay? Hands up if you're introvert. Yeah?
Too shy for that.
I am an introvert. It's true. But I'm Latino. So culturally, I am outgoing. But then when I leave here today, I'm gonna go home, crash. Being around people, I love it. Don't get me wrong, I love it. But I do find it fatiguing.
It is.
And yeah, that's right. And ministry, there's a level of vulnerability that you're putting out there as well. And that extra level of vulnerability, that can affect you as well. And that affects you even if you're an extrovert and you just love being around people, touching them, mingling with them, whatever. So we want to, I think it's important that we acknowledge that. We've lost Kathy. I think I offended her. Maybe she's an extrovert. And lastly, be ready to let go. Speaking of. God bless you, Harold, and yeah, love to see you. Thank you. Take care. I lost my train of thought. Oh, yes, that's right. There's something about ministry where it can be so life-giving. It can come to define who we are and what we do. And choir ministry is so important and so vital that each one of us can exercise ministry. We are firstly and foremost daughters and sons of God. And our relationship with church and with worship has to be centralized on that reality before anything else. If our ministry service is causing us to neglect that, then I want to encourage you to let go of that and be a daughter and son of God first. For some of us, that means going to another church. And I want to fully acknowledge that that is part of our reality sometimes. And it's hard. It can be very painful. But if we feel like as if our participation in our community has to be one of service all the time, it can really impact and affect our relationship with God. I have once, on the 5th week of the month, so once a quarter, I actually have a Sunday that I'm supposed to go and worship somewhere else usually. It's something that is there in the system for ministers. Why? Because how can I lead worship if I've done it for so long and in such a way that I've forgotten what it means to be a worship? And I'll be honest with you, I relish those words. Not because I don't enjoy being with you, but because that small change in mindset so empowers me and challenges me in the way how I serve every other week. So I want to encourage you all with that. Because it's really easy to say, I'm available these days, and I'm going to come, and I'm going to do it, but I'm not going to enjoy it. It's actually much more challenging to say, you know what? God is leading me, and I'm going to come at this time. And then the times that I'm not, I'm going to worship, and I'm going to enjoy that time for myself. I'm going to encourage you.
You mustn't feel guilty when you say no.
Exactly. Don't feel guilty when you say no.
And everyone needs time out to recharge batteries.
That's exactly right. Thank you. Yeah. So if you feel that, and you feel that you don't have someone that you can talk to about that, come and talk to me, please. I'll go back to you. Okay?
Esteban, just items 1 and 2 about talking to our friends and making time beyond the welcoming space for them as well could also include engaging our friends in being part of the welcoming team, so that numbers of our friends who feel that they would like to do that at that church actually have an invitation to do that.
Absolutely.
And so it becomes a team effort.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes. And Laura, you might remember, were you at the BDC
Probably.
training?
Yeah.
Massive church in Melbourne, right? And one of the people participating was asking them, so you get new people, and by the way, this church, they, on average, they get about 500 new people every quarter. We get one. We might need to go and borrow some of their Kool-Aid. What do you reckon?
Was it a certain denomination?
I mean, they're Baptists, but they're independent, so they're kind of, they kind of do what they want to do. Yeah. But I mean, looks and smells united.
Did they keep all of the new people?
No. No, they don't keep all the new people. But they keep a large percentage, much larger than other churches. And one of the reasons why they do that is because who do you think they put on welcoming first? Newly committed people. Because they remember what it was like. I love having welcomers who have been in the church for 20, 30 years. I love it, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But do you remember what it was like when you first walked into a church when you weren't an unbeliever? And it's that simple awareness and that simple knowledge that has translated for that particular congregation a significant influx in keeping and maintaining unity. So I'm not suggesting in any way that we completely change our ranks, but like Laura was saying, for some of our friends who perhaps have not been involved in this space, who may think, I'm not good enough to be a welcomer, rubbish. It's a great way to encourage them. Or to think, I'm not good enough to be a pastoral caregiver.
Sometimes people are so secure in their friendship groups that a newcomer can be a discord.
Yes.
So we have to be aware of that.
Have you seen my next slide? I'm aware of the time, so I'm going to burn through this next one very, very quickly. In Matthew 25, Jesus encourages us, come all of you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance. The kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me. I needed clothes and you clothed me. I was sick and you looked after me. I was in prison and you came to visit me. Truly I tell you, whatever you did for the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. You people are a disruption. I'll be the first to admit that. And they can be a very positive disruption, they can be a very negative disruption. Sometimes people will walk in and we do not want to welcome them. And that is very valid. That feeling is very valid. I want to affirm that that feeling is valid. It is part of our human condition to fear the other, to distrust the other. But Jesus here is saying that when we do that, it's him we're welcoming. It's him we're opening the doors to. That doesn't mean that there aren't going to be consequences. Someone comes in and we welcome them and we invite them into the life of our community, and then we find the communion is stolen or something goes wrong, they're praying in the car park. No one will hold you as a welcomer responsible for not addressing that person and their character as they walk in through the door. Instead, we all should think of ourselves as opening the doors for Jesus Christ, because he may come in all manner of different ways. And I've noticed that we have become very good at welcoming refugees and welcoming other people that really don't feel welcome in other areas here in society in Brisbane. I want to say to you, I am proud of that. I am proud of that. And I gush. In my journey in the elder space, I gush to other organizations to say, this congregation, based in Tarragona, Holland Park, Wahroonga, and Mount River, welcomes refugees. We need to. Not everyone does. Not everyone likes it, because it's a disruption. But why do we do it? This is why. I think that's a good place to end. What do you reckon?
Lunch is ready.
Lunch is ready. Thank you all so much. Let's keep the conversation going. I'm going to have a sangha. Is that the right term?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. I'm going to grab a sangha and I'm going to sit down over there. And if anybody wants to come and talk to me over a sangha, I would love that. Let me try the food and we will be at the share. That's right. Heavenly Father, I just want to thank you for this time we share together, and I pray your Holy Spirit to be upon us as we continue our walking and our gathering and our connecting. Bless the food that we're about to receive. We thank you, Father God, for the ministry that Adam and Bob have done in preparing that food. We thank you for the ministry of Jenny and John in preparing for this day with the COVID check-ins and the opportunity we've had to gather around your word, and we commit all of this to you and ask you that you continue to bless us with an understanding of this. In Jesus' name, the people of God say. Amen. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. I hope you had a good time. Shoot me an email. Let me know any thoughts or reflections that you might have. I'd love to hear from you. All right. See you later.